The world is teetering on the edge of a climate catastrophe, yet a glimmer of hope remains. Despite the UN's stark warning that we're losing the battle against global warming, the recent COP30 summit in Belém, Brazil, managed to keep the fight alive, barely. But here's where it gets controversial. While the agreement fell short of ending the fossil fuel era and failed to deliver a clear roadmap to halt deforestation, it did showcase the resilience of international cooperation in an era marked by nationalism, conflict, and distrust. The summit, held in the heart of the Amazon, was a battleground of competing interests. Led by Saudi Arabia, some nations staunchly opposed phasing out fossil fuels, while others struggled to unite on ending deforestation. And this is the part most people miss. Despite these setbacks, the talks didn't collapse. Simon Stiell, the UN's climate chief, emphasized that 194 countries stood firm in solidarity, proving that climate cooperation is alive and kicking. This unity was particularly notable given the absence of the US, whose former president, Donald Trump, has famously dismissed climate change as a hoax. Stiell candidly admitted, "We're not winning the climate fight, but we're undeniably still in it." He highlighted a key section of the COP30 agreement, the irreversible global shift toward low greenhouse gas emissions and climate-resilient development. This is a political and market signal that cannot be ignored, he argued. Yet, the summit's outcomes were largely incremental, falling short of what's needed to address the accelerating crisis. The negotiations were a roller coaster, with confusion and divisions threatening to derail the process. Overnight compromises salvaged a deal, leading to decisions on critical issues like tripling adaptation funding, establishing a just transition mechanism, and recognizing Indigenous rights. However, proposals to phase out fossil fuels and end deforestation were sidelined, pushed to external processes led by willing nations. The impact of the food system, such as cattle farming in the Amazon, was largely overlooked. Here's a bold question to ponder. Is incremental progress enough when the clock is ticking on climate catastrophe? Critics like Jasper Inventor from Greenpeace International called COP30 a whimper of disappointment, arguing it failed to transition from negotiations to implementation. UN Secretary-General António Guterres warned that reaching consensus is becoming increasingly difficult in a divided geopolitical landscape. The gap between where we are and what science demands remains dangerously wide, he said. Despite the flaws, many breathed a sigh of relief. EU Environment Commissioner Wop Hoekstra called it a huge step in the right direction, though far from perfect. Anna Aberg of Chatham House noted that avoiding a COP collapse was a win in itself, given the challenges facing international cooperation. Yet, frustration lingered over delayed adaptation finance and limited Indigenous participation, even as COP30 recognized Indigenous land rights for the first time. But here's the real kicker. The final text didn't directly mention fossil fuels, sparking outrage from climate scientists like James Dyke, who called it a shameful outcome driven by self-interest. Meanwhile, civil society returned in force, with tens of thousands protesting in Belém, injecting energy into an otherwise sterile conference. There was a palpable sense of momentum, said Jamie Henn of Fossil Free Media. As we look ahead to COP31, experts like Professor Michael Grubb argue that focusing solely on phasing out fossil fuels is politically fraught. Instead, he suggests balancing negativity with positivity, emphasizing the economic potential of accelerating the energy transition and helping countries benefit from renewables. So, what do you think? Is incremental progress better than none, or are we settling for too little too late? Let's spark a debate in the comments.